The mahogany desk trembled under the force of the folder's impact as Admiral Wilhelm Canaris watched coffee splash from his porcelain cup, staining intelligence reports that could have meant execution if discovered by the Gestapo. The date was March 17, 1943, and through the tall windows of Abwehr headquarters, Canaris could see the Landwehr Canal where Rosa Luxemburg's body had been dumped 24 years earlier. Now, as chief of German military intelligence, he held documents that challenged not merely Nazi propaganda, but the entire mathematical foundation upon which German victory calculations rested. Impossible, Canaris muttered, his hands trembling as he reviewed intercepted communications from agents still operating in Mexico City. The Americans are feeding us propaganda through turned agents. According to these reports, Ford Motor Company's Willow Run plant was producing one complete 4-engine B-24 Liberator bomber every hour. Each aircraft contained 1.5 million individual parts, 450,000 rivets, and 30,000 separate components assembled into an 18-ton machine rolling off assembly lines faster than Germany could produce simple POW Bellwagen military vehicles. Major Friedrich Wilhelm Heinz, standing at rigid attention before Canaris's desk, had triple-checked every piece of intelligence. The numbers remained unchanged, defying comprehension. What neither man could foresee was that this moment would trigger the most devastating intelligence failure in modern warfare. The systematic inability of German intelligence to comprehend, believe, or effectively communicate the true scale of American industrial capacity to Nazi leadership, ultimately dooming the Third Reich through fatal miscalculation of mathematical inevitability. The collapse of German intelligence regarding American production had begun 2 years earlier. In 1941, Luftwaffe General Karl Kohler had presented Hermann Göring with reports from military attaché General Friedrich von Boetticher in Washington, stating that American aircraft production was approaching 2,000 planes monthly. Göring had literally laughed, declaring that Americans could only build refrigerators and razor blades, not military aircraft. The Americans are bluffing, Göring had confidently told Hitler at the Wolf's Lair in December 1941, 4 days after Pearl Harbor. Their democracy makes them weak. Their mongrel population makes them inefficient. Their Jews make them corrupt. They cannot possibly produce what they claim. By March 1943, German intelligence networks across the Americas were reporting something that defied every assumption of Nazi racial theory and economic understanding. The reports originated from diverse sources: Mexican industrialists sympathetic to Germany, Spanish diplomats, Swedish businessmen traveling through Detroit, even intercepted letters from American workers to relatives in neutral countries. They all conveyed the same impossible message. Ford's Willow Run plant alone was producing more heavy bombers than all of Germany's aircraft factories combined. Oberst Nicholas Ritter, head of Abwehr's Air Intelligence Section Abteilung Luft, had spent 3 weeks analyzing the data. A former Lufthansa pilot who had lived in America for 10 years before the war, Ritter understood American industrial capacity better than most German officers. His Manhattan apartment during the 1920s had overlooked construction of the Chrysler Building, where he had witnessed Americans erect the world's tallest building in less than 2 years. Herr Admiral, Ritter reported to Canaris with grim certainty, if these numbers are correct, and I believe they are, then Germany has already lost the war. It is now only a question of mathematics and time. The intelligence arrived through increasingly perilous channels. Georg Nikolaus, running Abwehr's primary network in Mexico City, had cultivated sources among American businessmen who traveled freely between Detroit and Mexico's oil fields. These men spoke casually of miracles they witnessed, unaware their dinner conversations were being transcribed by German agents. On February 3, 1943, American oil executive Harold Morrison attended a reception at the German-Mexican Commerce Association. After several tequilas, Morrison began describing his recent tour of the Willow Run facility, arranged by Ford to showcase the company's capability to potential investors. Gentlemen, Morrison had declared, unaware that Wolfgang Blow, a German agent posing as an Argentine leather merchant, was memorizing every word. What I saw defies description. The assembly line stretches over a mile long. The building is so vast that clouds form inside it, and it sometimes rains within the factory. They employ 42,000 workers, including thousands of women, Negro women, building the most complex machine ever created. Morrison had pulled out a pencil and begun sketching on a napkin. The bomber has 2 bomb bays, each holding 4,000 pounds of ordnance, 4 engines each producing 200 horsepower. They produce them in sections, sub-assemblies Ford calls them, that converge like rivers flowing into the sea. Blow had asked, attempting casual interest, but surely such complexity means frequent breakdowns, production delays. Morrison had laughed. That's what Consolidated Aircraft thought. They mocked Ford, said you can't build planes like cars. But Ford broke the bomber down into 60,000 separate operations. Each worker performs the same task repeatedly. A woman who yesterday was making breakfast for her children now installs hydraulic lines in tail sections. They train them in days, not months. Perhaps the most detailed intelligence came through Francisco Franco's Spain. Colonel José Ungria, Spanish military attaché in Washington, maintained close relationships with American aircraft manufacturers while secretly providing intelligence to Germany in exchange for tungsten shipments crucial to Spanish industry. In March 1943, Ungria attended a reception at the Argentine embassy where he encountered Charles Sorensen, Ford's production chief and architect of Willow Run. Sorensen, believing he was speaking to a representative of a neutral nation that might purchase aircraft after the war, spoke freely about the plant's capabilities. Colonel, Sorensen had said, unaware that every word would reach Berlin within 2 weeks. When I first visited Consolidated San Diego plant in 1940, they were building B-24s outdoors in sunshine, each one different from the last, taking 180,000 man-hours per aircraft. I knew we could do better. Through Swedish, Argentine, Japanese, and Turkish channels, German intelligence received consistent reports confirming Willow Run's production rate. Swedish engineer Erik Lundberg visited the plant in March 1943 and reported, the plant operates with efficiency that defies European understanding. They use 600 specialized machine tools, many designed for single operations. The capital investment is staggering, perhaps 200 million for tooling alone. By April 1943, German intelligence had assembled comprehensive data from 17 independent sources, all confirming the production rate. The numbers were staggering. Willow Run alone was producing 650 B-24s monthly at peak, with entire American B-24 production exceeding 400 monthly. Desperate for ground truth, Canaris authorized Operation Pastorius, the insertion of saboteurs into the United States via submarine. George John Dash, leader of one 4-man team, had lived in America for 20 years before returning to Germany in 1939. His secret orders from Canaris were to gather intelligence on aircraft production before conducting any sabotage operations. In the early morning hours of June 13, 1942, Dash's team landed at Amagansett, Long Island, having come ashore from U-202 just after midnight. Within days, tormented by the implications of his mission and what he already knew about American capacity, Dash surrendered to the FBI. During interrogation, Dash revealed something that stunned his American captors. Canaris himself told me that Berlin doesn't believe your production figures. They think Willow Run is propaganda. He wanted photographs, employee counts, shipping records, proof that would force Geo Ring to accept reality. FBI Special Agent Charles Lamon asked incredulously, "They don't believe we're producing a bomber an hour." Dash laughed bitterly. "Agent Lamon, I lived here. I've seen your automobile factories." I tried to tell them that if Ford could produce a car every minute before the war, they could certainly produce a bomber every hour during it. They accused me of being defeatist. On April 20, 1943, Hitler's 54th birthday, Canaris personally presented the intelligence to Geo Ring at Karinhall, the Reich Marshal's ostentatious hunting estate north of Berlin. The meeting would become legendary among German intelligence officers for Geo Ring's complete rejection of reality. Canaris had brought photographs, intercepted documents, reports from dozens of sources. He spread them across Geo Ring's massive oak table like a dealer showing cards that would lose the game. Herr Reichsmarschall, Canaris began carefully. We have confirmation from 17 independent sources. The Ford Willow Run plant is producing 1 B-24 Liberator every hour at peak production. They have achieved this rate consistently since January. Geo Ring, weighing over 280 pounds by this point in the war, picked up one photograph showing the assembly line stretching into the distance. Canaris, Geo Ring said with contempt, "Do you take me for a fool? These are obviously wooden mock-ups, props for propaganda. The Americans want us to believe they can build aircraft like sausages. This Willow Run plant probably produces 50 bombers monthly at most." A week later, Canaris was summoned to the Wolf's Lair to brief Hitler personally. The meeting included Generals Jodl and Keitel and Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels. Hitler, studying maps of the Eastern Front where the Wehrmacht was preparing for Operation Citadel, listened impatiently as Canaris presented the intelligence. "Mein Führer," Canaris said, knowing he was risking his life. "If the Americans are producing 400 B-24s monthly, plus equal numbers of B-17s, plus their fighter aircraft, plus British production, the aerial bombardment of the Reich will soon exceed our defensive capabilities." Hitler's response was characteristic. "Admiral, the Americans are capable of mass production of simple goods, automobiles, refrigerators. But a bomber is not a car. It requires precision, skill, dedication. When it took us 6 years to prepare for war, they claim to have achieved this in 16 months. It's impossible." Unknown to Nazi leadership, Canaris had obtained film footage of Willow Run in operation through American intelligence contacts in Switzerland. The film, smuggled via Spanish diplomatic pouches, showed 5 minutes of the assembly line in full operation. Canaris and his deputy Hans Oster watched the film in a locked room at Abwehr headquarters. The camera traveled along the entire mile-long assembly line. B-24s in every stage of construction moved past at steady pace. Workers, men, women, black, white, performed tasks with mechanical precision. A clock visible in several shots confirmed the timing. "My God," Oster whispered, "it's true." Canaris lit the film with his cigarette lighter, watching it burn. "We cannot show this to them. They would accuse us of creating fake footage or being traitors." By February 1944, Canaris was removed from his position, suspected of defeatism and treason. His replacement, Walter Schellenberg, was a Nazi loyalist who wouldn't dare contradict Hitler or Geo Ring. But reality couldn't be ignored forever. On February 20, 1944, big week, the American 8th Air Force launched Operation Argument, sending over 1 Zarosen heavy bombers against German aircraft factories. In 6 days, they dropped more bomb tonnage than the Luftwaffe had dropped on Britain during the entire Blitz. On June 6, 1944, over 11,000 Allied aircraft appeared over France. The Luftwaffe could muster fewer than 300 fighters in response. Field Marshal Hugo Spurl sent a desperate message to Berlin. "The enemy's aerial superiority is absolute. Our intelligence was correct. We were deceived not by the Americans, but by ourselves." By April 1944, Willow Run achieved its peak production rate. That month, employees in 2 9-hour shifts working 6 days a week produced 453 airplanes in 468 hours, a production rate equal to 1 finished B-24 Liberator every 63 minutes. The plant employed 431 workers, including 11,000 women, 26% of workforce, 3,800 African Americans, and 9% of workforce, and 200 disabled workers, 3% of workforce. This demographic breakdown would have shattered Nazi racial ideology completely. The inferior races and weaker sex were outproducing the German master race by orders of magnitude. After the war, surviving German intelligence officers revealed the full scope of the failure. Walter Schellenberg testified at Nuremberg. "We knew the truth about American production by early 1943. Every professional intelligence officer understood the numbers were accurate. But to report this truth was to risk execution for defeatism. The German intelligence officers who tried to report the truth paid a heavy price. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris was executed April 9, 1945 at Flossenbühne concentration camp. Hans Oster was executed the same day at the same camp. The failure to believe intelligence about Willow Run had catastrophic consequences for German strategic planning, resource allocation, and diplomatic initiatives. Albert Speer, in post-war interrogation, was asked why Germany didn't believe the intelligence about American production. His response was revealing. To accept that Ford could produce a bomber every hour was to accept that our entire worldview was wrong. That democracy wasn't weak but strong. That racial mixing didn't create weakness but strength. That women could do men's work. It would mean accepting that we had started a war we could never win. Who would tell Hitler that? By war's end, the full scale was revealed. Total B-24s produced 18th of 8 Willow Run built 860-25. The United States produced 324,000 aircraft while fighting a two-ocean war, compared to Germany's 94,700 aircraft. The German intelligence failure regarding American production stands as one of the most consequential in military history. Not a failure of collection, but a failure of acceptance. The story carries profound lessons about cognitive bias, ideological blindness, and the dangers of intelligence systems that punish unwelcome truths. At the 1985 dedication of the Yankee Air Museum at Willow Run, former Rosie the Riveter, Rose Will Monroe met former Luftwaffe pilot Hans Rudel. When Rudel asked how they built so many so fast, Monroe answered simply, "Honey, we just went to work every day and did our job. Nothing fancy. Just punch in, build bombers, punch out. Democracy isn't complicated. It's just free people doing their best." In the ruins of Berlin, May 1945, American intelligence officers discovered a final German intelligence report on Willow Run, dated April 20, 1945, Hitler's last birthday. It read, "Willow Run production confirmed. We reported this truth 2 years ago. We were not believed. Germany dies not from lack of intelligence, but from lack of wisdom to believe intelligence that contradicts what we wish to be true." The report was never delivered. By then, Hitler was in his bunker, the 1,000-year Reich had days to live, and thousands of American bombers, many built at Willow Run, delivered the final argument German intelligence had tried to make 2 years earlier. Reality doesn't care what you believe, and those who deny reality in favor of ideology will ultimately be destroyed by it.